The massive crystal dome of the Galactic Council glowed with panic. Inside, representatives from 847 different alien species talked loudly over each other. Their voices mixed into a noise that sounded like a broken radio trying to find a signal. Council leader Thysera stood at the center podium. Her blue skin had turned pale, and her forearms shook as she held the latest reports. The news was bad. Very bad. The Void Swarm has destroyed 3 more sectors, she announced. Her voice echoed through the dome. 15 billion lives lost in the past month alone. The chamber fell silent. The Void Swarm was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It moved from star to star like a hungry animal. It ate planets, consumed suns, and left nothing but empty space behind. Worse, it was getting faster. In the front row, the crystalline Catherians sparkled nervously. Their leader, Zeton, spoke in a voice like wind chimes. Our mathematical models show the swarm will reach the core worlds within 6 months. Next to them, the hive-minded Nexari buzzed in unison. Their queen's mental voice reached every mind in the chamber. Our tactical projections agree. Resistance appears futile. The energy beings called luminals flickered like dying light bulbs. Their spokesperson, a being of pure light named Veltar, pulsed weakly. Our combined fleets cannot match its consumption rate. For every ship we build, it destroys 10 star systems. Thisra looked around the chamber. These were the smartest species in the galaxy. The Catherians could solve math problems that would break supercomputers. The Nexari could coordinate millions of minds to think as one. The luminals understood energy manipulation that seemed like magic. None of them had an answer. There must be something, Thisra said. Some strategy we haven't considered. An old Catherian named Mordal rang like a broken bell. We have analyzed 847,000 possible approaches. All lead to extinction. The chamber filled with despair. Some species began preparing death songs. Others started transmitting final messages to their homeworlds. Then Veltar flickered brighter. Wait, there is one protocol we haven't used. What? Protocol? Thysera asked. The Primitive Species Assessment Protocol. We examine younger civilizations for unconventional thinking. The chamber erupted in angry voices. The idea was insulting. How could primitive species solve problems that advanced civilizations couldn't? The protocol exists for a reason, Veltar continued. Sometimes fresh perspectives see what experience misses. Thysera raised all 4 arms for silence. How many species qualify? 17 have achieved faster than light travel in the past century. Most are too young to have developed real strategic thinking. But what? There's one species that interests our analysts. They call themselves humans. They've been spacefaring for only 50 years, but their military history is unusual. The Nexari Queen's mental voice carried disgust. Unusual how? They fight each other constantly. They've developed warfare into something approaching art. They're tactical. Databases contain strategies we've never seen. Mordal chimed dismissively. Barbaric violence is not strategic thinking. Perhaps, Veltar pulsed. But they're also the only species to achieve victory ratios above 90% in asymmetric conflicts. Thysera felt a tiny spark of hope. Can we contact them? Their exploration vessel Terra's Hope is currently in the Beta Centauri system. We could have them here in 12 hours. The debate lasted 3 hours. Most council members thought the idea was stupid. How could a species that still used chemical explosives help against the Void Swarm? But desperation won in the end. 12 hours later, Captain Jiwan stood in the council chamber and tried not to stare. He was a normal-looking human. Average height, black hair, brown eyes. His uniform was simple and practical. Next to the incredible aliens around him, he looked very ordinary. His crew stood behind him. Minho, his tactical officer, studied the chamber's layout with sharp eyes. Hana, the ship's scientist, stared at the alien technology with obvious excitement. Doyun, their engineer, was already taking notes about the dome's construction. Captain Jiwon of the human vessel Terra's Hope, Thysera said formally. "The Galactic Council requests your assistance with a tactical problem." Jiwan looked confused. "With respect, Council Leader, we're just explorers. We're not even part of the Council." "That may be precisely why we need you." Thysera activated a massive holographic display. It showed the galaxy with red zones marking void swarm destruction. The red was spreading like a disease. "This is the void swarm. It has destroyed 23 sectors in 8 months. Our best strategists cannot find a way to stop it." Jiwan studied the display quietly. His crew gathered around him, pointing at different parts of the projection and whispering to each other. "What have you tried?" Jiwan asked. Zetan rang proudly. "We've attempted 847,000 strategic approaches, defensive formations, mobile tactics, technological solutions, diplomatic contact attempts." "All defensive," Minho interrupted. The chamber fell silent. Minho realized he had spoken out of turn, but Jiwan nodded for him to continue. "Every strategy you've listed is defensive. You're trying to protect things from the swarm. But it's a predator, right? It hunts and feeds?" The Nexari Queen's mental voice was cold. "Yes, it consumes stellar matter and organic compounds." "Then stop defending," Jiwan said simply. "Start hunting." The aliens stared at him. Veltar flickered uncertainty. "Hunting? It's a force of nature. You cannot hunt a hurricane." "You can if it's intelligent enough to be trapped," Hana said. She was studying the hologram intently. "Look at these movement patterns. It's not random. It's following energy signatures and taking the most efficient paths between systems. Which means it's predictable," Dohyun added. "Predictable things can be ambushed." Jiwan walked closer to the hologram. "You've been thinking about this wrong. You see a natural disaster. We see a very large, very dangerous animal. And humans are very good at hunting dangerous animals." The chamber erupted in shocked voices. The idea was insane. The void swarm had destroyed fleets of millions of ships. How could anyone hunt it? But Thysera found herself listening. There was something in the human's voice. A quiet confidence. That made her think he actually believed what he was saying. "What would hunting it require?" she asked. Jiwan looked at his crew. They had a quick, whispered conversation. Then he turned back to the council. "Complete authority over all council military forces. Access to all tactical databases. Authority to requisition any resources needed for the operation. And permission to ignore any regulations that get in the way." The chamber fell dead silent. What the human was asking for was unprecedented. No single species had ever commanded council forces. The authority he wanted was essentially unlimited. "The council cannot simply grant," Mordal began. "The council can do whatever it votes to." "Do?" Thysera interrupted. She looked around the chamber, all in favor of granting Captain Jiwan emergency authority as supreme strategic species. The vote was closer than expected, but desperation won. 543 votes in favor, 304 against. "Captain Jiwan," Thysera said formally, "by council vote, humanity is hereby designated as the supreme strategic species, with full authority over all military operations until the void swarm threat is eliminated." Jiwan nodded seriously. "We won't let you down, Council Leader." As the humans left to begin their work, Veltar flickered nervously next to Thysera. "I hope we've made the right choice," the energy being said. Thysera watched the humans disappear through the chamber doors. Something in their confidence worried her. "So do I," she whispered. Captain Jiwan stood in what used to be the council's main conference room. In just 48 hours, it had become something completely different. Maps covered every wall. Alien officers sat at workstations that hummed with activity. The peaceful chamber now looked like a military command center. "Status report," Jiwan said as his crew gathered around the central table. Minho looked up from a data tablet. "I've converted 17 agricultural worlds into fortress planets. The farmers weren't happy, but they're learning to use plasma rifles instead of harvesting equipment." Hana was surrounded by confused alien scientists. "I've identified 43 Technologies that can be weaponized. The Nexari communication network can track enemy movements across the galaxy. The Catherian meditation crystals can be turned into proximity mines. Doyen grinned as he showed holographic ship designs. I'm retrofitting luxury cruise ships into Q-ships. Heavy weapons disguised as passenger vessels. The swarm won't see it coming. Jiwan nodded approvingly. Around them, alien officers worked frantically to keep up with human demands. The efficiency was impressive. It was also terrifying the council members who watched from the observation deck. Thisera stood with other council leaders, looking down at the transformed command center. This isn't what we expected, she said quietly. Beltar flickered nervously. In 48 hours, they've militarized more systems than we managed in 8 months of fighting. Below them, a cheery diplomat approached Minho's station. The small, childlike alien held a formal protest document. Officer Minho, the cheery squeaked. The farmers of Kepler 442b wish to file a complaint. You've turned their grain silos into ammunition storage. Minho looked up from his tactical displays. The grain silos have the perfect structure for storing plasma charges. The farmers can help load ammunition or they can find somewhere else to grow food. But farming is their culture, their way of life. Their way of life won't matter if the void swarm eats their planet, Minho replied calmly. They can farm after we win the war. The cheery diplomat squeaked in frustration and hurried away. Thisera noticed that Minho had already marked the complaint as filed and returned to his work. The human wasn't being cruel. He simply didn't see the complaint as important enough to stop working. Across the command center, Hana was explaining her latest project to a group of horrified Catherian scientists. She held up a beautiful crystal that normally helped the Catherians meditate and find inner peace. These crystals can store incredible amounts of energy, Hana said excitedly. If we modify the resonance frequency and add a proximity trigger, they become perfect mines. We can hide them in asteroid fields and space debris. Zethan rang like a broken bell. Those crystals are sacred. They've been used for spiritual meditation for thousands of years. That's nice, Hana said, already working on the crystal with alien tools. But right now they're more useful as weapons. We can make new meditation crystals after we save the galaxy. You don't understand. Each crystal takes decades to grow properly. Hana paused and looked at the alien seriously. How long will it take to grow new crystals if the void swarm destroys your home world? Zethan had no answer to that. At the engineering station, Doyun was showing his Q-ship designs to a luminal admiral, the energy being pulsed with confusion as it studied the schematics. These appear to be civilian vessels, Admiral Luxara said. That's the point, Do-hyun explained cheerfully. They look like harmless cruise ships or cargo haulers. But inside, they're carrying enough firepower to destroy a small fleet. The swarm will ignore them until it's too late. This violates the Galactic Convention on Civilian Protection. It also breaks the Treaty of Peaceful Commerce. And the Accord on... How many treaties did the Void Swarm sign? Do-hyun interrupted. Luxara flickered uncertainly. None, but... Then the treaties don't apply. We're fighting for survival, not following rules. The luminal admiral pulsed with distress and floated away. Do-hyun returned to his work, humming quietly as he designed more weapons. By the end of the second day, the changes were dramatic. Art museums had become ammunition depots. Diplomatic schools were training new soldiers. The famous Sacred Gardens of Eternal Peace now housed urban warfare training courses. Thisera finally decided to intervene. She walked down to the command center and approached Jiwan's central station. Captain, she said formally, the council has some concerns about the scope of these changes. Jiwan looked up from tactical reports. What concerns? You've militarized our entire civilization in 2 days. This goes far beyond what we expected when we granted you strategic authority. Council leader, Jiwan said patiently, you asked us to stop the Void Swarm. That requires total commitment. You can't fight a war with half your resources while the other half pretends nothing is happening. But surely some things should remain civilian. Cultural sites, educational institutions, places of worship. Will any of those matter if everyone's dead? Minho asked, walking over to join the conversation. Thisera's forearms gestured in frustration. There must be limits to military authority. Hana looked up from her weapon designs. Council leader, with respect, you gave us unlimited authority to stop the swarm. If you wanted limits, you should have specified them in the original vote. We didn't think. No, Jiwan said gently. You didn't think. You were desperate and scared, so you gave us whatever we asked for. That's not your fault, but it's done now. Thisera felt a chill run down her spine. Are you refusing to acknowledge council oversight? Not at all, Jiwan said. We're happy to report to the council, but we're not going to let bureaucratic concerns interfere with military operations. This isn't what we voted for. Minho pulled out a data tablet and showed her the official vote record. You voted to grant humanity supreme strategic species status with full authority over military operations. You didn't specify any limitations or oversight requirements. We assumed. Assumptions aren't legal documents, Hana said cheerfully. We're operating exactly within the authority you granted. Thisera realized she was trapped. The humans weren't breaking any laws or violating their agreement. They were just interpreting their authority much more broadly than anyone had expected. What if the council votes to modify your authority? She asked. You're welcome to try, Jiwan said. But I should mention that all council votes are now subject to military review for security purposes. If a vote could interfere with the war effort, it might be delayed until after the crisis. You can't suspend council democracy. We're not suspending anything, Minho said. We're just prioritizing. The war effort comes first. Everything else comes second. That evening, Thisera called an emergency meeting with other council leaders. They met in a small private room that the humans hadn't converted into a military facility yet. We've made a terrible mistake, she told the gathered aliens. Veltar flickered nervously. The humans are effective, but their methods are turning us into a military dictatorship, Mordal chimed. In 2 days, they've gained control over our entire civilization. Legally, added the Nexari Queen's mental voice. They haven't broken a single law. They've just used the authority we gave them. Zetan rang mournfully. Perhaps we should vote to rescind their supreme strategic species status. I tried that, Thisera said. The motion was classified as detrimental to the war effort and postponed indefinitely. The room fell silent. The aliens looked at each other with growing understanding. They had solved one problem by creating another one. What do we do? Luxara pulsed weakly. Thisera stared at the ceiling. Outside, she could hear the sounds of construction as humans converted another cultural center into a military training facility. I don't know, she admitted. They're not evil. They're not even cruel. They're just thorough. Too thorough, Veltar flickered. The question is, the Nexari Queen said, will they give up power after they defeat the swarm? Do you think they will? Mordal asked. Thisera thought about Jiwan's calm confidence, Minho's systematic approach, Hana's cheerful efficiency, and Dohyun's practical solutions. The humans truly believed they were helping. That somehow made it worse. I think, she said slowly, they'll do whatever they think is best for the galaxy, whether we agree or not. Outside, another building was converted from civilian to military use. The hammering continued through the night. The first battle came sooner than expected. Long-range sensors detected a void swarm scout force approaching the mining world of Kepler 438c. The planet was worthless, just rocks and metal with a small automated mining operation. Most aliens would have evacuated and written it off as a loss. Jiwan saw an opportunity. We're going to let them land, he announced in the command center. The alien officers stared at him in shock. Veltar flickered with disbelief. Captain, that violates every principle of space defense. You never allow enemy forces to establish a ground presence. You never allow a conventional enemy to establish ground presence, Minho corrected. The void swarm isn't conventional. Hana was already working at her station, pulling up detailed scans of Kepler 438c. The planet has 847 mining tunnels, each going down at least 5 kilometers. The tunnel system covers 60% of the planet's surface. Dohyun grinned as he understood the plan. And mining tunnels are perfect for hiding large amounts of explosives. You want to turn the entire planet into a bomb? Admiral Luxara pulsed with horror. Why not? Jiwan asked. It's just a rock. But if we can trap a significant portion of the swarm there, the planet represents billions of credits in mining infrastructure. Zethan chimed in protest. The galaxy represents trillions of lives. Hana replied without looking up from her calculations. I think that's worth more than some mining equipment. Within 6 hours, Do-hyun's engineering teams were working across Kepler 438c. They loaded every tunnel with nuclear charges, antimatter bombs, and experimental weapons that Hana had designed from stolen Catherian meditation crystals. The mining. Robots were reprogrammed to dig deeper tunnels and hide more explosives. The Void Swarm arrived 3 days later. The alien fleet wanted to engage them in space, but Jiwan ordered a retreat. The human ships pulled back, making it look like they were afraid. This is humiliating. Admiral Luxara pulsed as the luminal fleet withdrew. We outnumber the swarm scouts 50-1. Humiliation is temporary, Jiwan said calmly. Death is permanent. The Void Swarm took the bait. Seeing the apparently weak defenses, the scout force descended to the planet's surface. The swarm entities were massive, each one the size of a city building. They moved like liquid metal, flowing across the landscape and consuming everything they touched. The mining equipment disappeared first, then the swarm entities discovered the tunnel system and flowed down into the underground network, seeking more resources to consume. They're taking the bait, Minho reported. 60% of the swarm force is now underground. 70%, Hana corrected, watching her sensors. They're following the tunnel system exactly like we predicted. 80%. They're concentrating in the deep mining areas where we placed the largest charges. Jiwan watched the displays, calmly. Around him, alien officers waited with growing tension. This plan violated everything they understood about warfare. 90% of the swarm is now underground. Minho announced. Fire. Jiwan said quietly. Do-hyun pressed a single button. Kepler 438c exploded. The detonation was visible from 3 star systems away. The planet didn't just blow up, it vaporized. Nuclear fire mixed with antimatter annihilation and exotic crystal energy. Where a world had existed moments before, there was now only expanding plasma and debris. The command center fell silent. On the displays, they could see the scattered remains of the Void Swarm scout force, tiny fragments scattered across thousands of kilometers of space. Hostile force eliminated, Minho reported unnecessarily. The alien officers stared at the empty space where a planet used to be. Zethan was the first to speak, his voice ringing like a funeral bell. You destroyed an entire world. We destroyed an entire swarm scout force, Jiwan corrected. The planet was just the delivery method. This is wasteful destruction of planetary resources. Admiral Luxara pulsed angrily. This is what humans call scorched earth doctrine, Hana explained cheerfully. If the enemy wants something, you destroy it so they can't have it. But the mining operation was worth billions, Do-hyun shrugged. And now the swarm knows what happens when they try to feed on our territory. Fear is worth more than money. The victory news spread quickly through council space. For the first time in 8 months, a Void Swarm force had been completely destroyed. The celebration lasted exactly 1 day before the humans implemented their next terrifying strategy. Minho's new plan was called guerrilla warfare. Instead of large fleet battles, small human teams would sneak close to swarm formations and plant gifts, asteroids and space debris, filled with explosives that would detonate when the swarm tried to consume them. This is not how civilized species conduct warfare, the Nexari Queen protested during a strategy meeting. Civilized warfare is why you were losing, Minho replied. We're not trying to be civilized. We're trying to win. The results were effective and disturbing. Swarm forces began encountering exploding asteroids throughout their territory. Every piece of space debris became potentially deadly. The swarm started avoiding metal-rich asteroids entirely, which slowed their expansion significantly. But Hana's contribution was the most controversial. She had developed what she called psychological warfare. The swarm shows signs of collective intelligence, she explained to a group of horrified luminal scientists. If it can think, it can be frightened. Her solution was to broadcast human music on frequencies that disrupted swarm coordination. Not just any music, specifically human death metal, played at volumes that could be heard across star systems. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Swarm formations began making mistakes, moving in uncoordinated patterns and sometimes attacking each other instead of their targets. This is acoustic torture, Veltar pulsed in distress. It's also working, Hana pointed out. Swarm efficiency has dropped by 40% in areas where we're broadcasting. The music is affecting our ships too. Our crews can't concentrate. Then they should learn to appreciate human culture, Hana said with a smile. The breaking point came during the Battle of the Neutral Zone. A large swarm force was approaching the Council's diplomatic sector, where the Galactic Supreme Court was located. Traditional strategy called for evacuating the area and establishing a defensive perimeter. Jiwan ordered a false retreat instead. You're leading them directly toward the Supreme Court. Chief Justice Mordal chimed in panic. Yes, Jiwan said, calmly. The court houses the most important legal minds in the galaxy. Then they should evacuate quickly. The Supreme Court justices fled their beautiful courthouse world as human forces led the swarm directly through the diplomatic sector. It looked like the humans had made a terrible mistake, or worse, that they were deliberately sacrificing the Science Court to save other areas. The truth became clear when the swarm reached the courthouse world. Instead of a planet full of legal scholars, they found a carefully prepared trap. The courthouse had been converted into a massive weapon that channeled the planet's core energy into a directed blast. The swarm force was destroyed instantly. The courthouse world was also destroyed, but that seemed to be part of the plan. Chief Justice Mordal confronted Jiwan after the battle. You used our most sacred legal institution as bait. You could have warned us. I did warn you, Jiwan replied. I told you to evacuate. You didn't tell us you were planning to destroy the courthouse and you didn't ask. This is unacceptable. I demand a court-martial for endangering civilian leadership. Jiwan looked at the Chief Justice calmly. Under emergency war powers, there are no civilians. Everyone is either helping the war effort or they're in the way. You have no authority to declare martial law. Actually, Minho said, pulling out a legal document. The Supreme Strategic Species designation includes authority over all aspects of the war effort. Since the war affects everything, that means authority over everything. Chief Justice Mordal studied the document with growing horror. This interpretation is completely outside the intent of the original vote. The original vote didn't specify intent, Hana pointed out. It just granted authority. We're using that authority as we see fit. I'll file a legal challenge. You can try, Jiwan said, but I should mention that I'm promoting myself to Fleet Admiral, which gives me authority to review all legal challenges for security implications. You can't promote yourself. I can promote anyone I think deserves it, Admiral Jiwan replied, including myself. That night, another emergency council meeting was held. This time they met in a maintenance closet, one of the few places the humans hadn't converted for military use. We have to stop them, Thesera whispered. How? Veltar flickered weakly. Every time we try to use legal channels, they find new interpretations of their authority. They're not breaking any laws, the Nixari Queen admitted. They're just using the laws in ways we never imagined. They destroyed a planet and called it strategy, Zetan chimed mournfully. They're leading enemy forces into our most sacred spaces and calling it tactics. And it's working. Admiral Luxara pulsed reluctantly. The swarm is retreating from 3 sectors. That's the problem, Thesera said. They're saving the galaxy, but they're destroying our civilization to do. They're outside the maintenance closet. They could hear human voices coordinating the next operation. The humans sounded cheerful and confident, like they were planning a picnic instead of another terrifying military strategy. What scares me most, Thesera whispered, is that I don't think 3 months after the humans took control, the impossible was happening. The void swarm was retreating. For the first time in galactic history, the ancient threat was running away instead of advancing. The galaxy should have been celebrating. Instead, alien morale was at an all-time low. Admiral Jiwan stood in his expanded command center, reviewing the latest reports. The room had grown to fill an entire level of the council station. Hundreds of screens showed troop movements, supply lines, and battle plans across the galaxy. Human and alien officers worked side by side, but the humans made all the important decisions. Status report, Jiwan said as his senior staff gathered around the central table. Do-hyun looked pleased with himself. The asteroid belt defense grid is complete. We've converted the entire Tau Ceti system into a minefield. Any swarm force that enters the system will trigger a chain reaction that could destroy a small moon. Casualties during construction? Jiwan asked. Minimal. Only 43 workers lost when the Luminol construction crews tried to protest safety violations. They learned to follow human safety protocols after that. Hana was surrounded by alien scientists who looked exhausted and frightened. We've successfully weaponized 12 more peaceful technologies. The ethereal monk's prayer crystals can now disrupt swarm communication across several light years. The cheery lullaby frequencies can put swarm entities into stasis. What about the monks' protests? They stopped protesting after we explained that refusing to help the war effort constitutes treason, Hana said cheerfully. Minho had the most impressive report. His intelligence network now monitored every communication in council space. I've intercepted 847 attempts at seditious communication in the past week. Most were just civilians complaining about rationing, but 7 were serious. Attempts to organize resistance against our authority. How did you handle them? Standard procedure. The complainers were assigned to morale improvement duty on the front lines. The resistance organizers were transferred to high-risk reconnaissance missions. Jiwan nodded approvingly. None of this seemed unusual to the humans. They were running an efficient military operation during a war for survival. The fact that aliens found their methods disturbing was irrelevant, but the aliens were more than disturbed. They were terrified. In a hidden chamber deep within the station, Council Leader Thisara met secretly with other faction leaders. The A meeting had to be secret because Minho's surveillance network monitored all official government communications. We have to do something, Thisara whispered. They've gone too far. Around the table, alien leaders shared their horror stories. Veltar flickered weakly as he spoke. They've conscripted the ethereal monks. Beings who have taken vows of pacifism for thousands of years are now building weapons. They're drafting children, squeaked a cheery representative. My people only live 20 years on average. The humans say that makes them experienced adults at age 5. Zethan rang like a cracked bell. They've emptied the great library of Andromeda. 10 million years of accumulated knowledge, and they've reassigned all the archivists to practical research duties. The worst part, added the Nexari Queen's mental voice, is that it's all legal. They've found justifications for everything. Thisara felt sick. What triggered this meeting was their latest announcement, Total War Protocol Omega. The other aliens shuddered. They had all received the same notification that morning. Every species in council space was now subject to complete conscription for the war effort. No exemptions for age, religious beliefs, or cultural practices. They're even drafting the machine intelligences, Veltar pulsed. The AIs that have been neutral observers for millions of years are now required to participate in military planning. How? Is this different from what they were already doing? Asked a small voice. Everyone turned to look at the newest member of their group, a young Kitherian named Telana, who had only recently been elected to the council. Before, they were converting our resources and technology, Thisara explained. Now they're converting us. Every being in the galaxy is now either a soldier, a worker, or a resource. But the Void Swarm is retreating, Zethan interrupted. The immediate threat is almost over, but the humans show no signs of reducing their control. Minho's voice came from the room's speakers. You're right. We don't. The aliens froze in terror. Minho stepped through the chamber door, flanked by 2 human security officers. Your surveillance equipment isn't very good, Minho said conversationally. We've been monitoring this room for weeks. This is a private council meeting. Thisra protested. There are no private meetings during wartime, Minho replied. Everything affects the war effort, so everything requires security oversight. Are you arresting us? For what? You haven't actually done anything illegal. You're just complaining. Minho sat down at the table uninvited. But since you're here, let's talk about your concerns. The aliens looked at each other nervously. Thisra finally spoke. Our concern is that you've turned our civilization into a military dictatorship. Yes, Minho agreed. That's exactly what we've done. The simple admission was more shocking than denial would have been. Don't you see anything wrong with that? Veltar flickered. Wrong. We're winning. The swarm is retreating. Casualties are down 90% from pre-human levels. Industrial production is at an all-time high. Crime has practically disappeared. Minho looked genuinely confused. What's wrong with success? We've lost our freedom. The cheery representative squeaked. You've lost some luxuries, Minho corrected. Freedom is meaningless if you're dead. But the war is almost over. This war is almost over. There will be other wars. The room fell silent. Zeton was the first to speak, his voice barely a whisper. Other wars? Of course. The galaxy is full of threats. Rogue AI civilizations, interdimensional invaders, time travelers, reality warpers. The Void Swarm was just the first threat we encountered. Those are theoretical dangers. So was the Void Swarm until it started eating star systems. Minho stood up. The galaxy is a dangerous place. Someone needs to be ready to defend it. And you've decided that someone is you? We've decided that someone is us, all of us. The entire galactic community, organized and prepared for whatever comes next. Thisra felt a chill run down her spine. You're never planning to give up control, are you? Minho looked surprised. Give up control to whom? The same council that couldn't stop the swarm? The same governments that nearly let the galaxy be destroyed because they were too civilized to fight dirty? We made one mistake. You made one mistake that nearly ended everything. We're making sure you don't get the chance to make another. After Minho left, the aliens sat in shocked silence. Finally, Veltar spoke in a voice like dying light. We're not getting our galaxy back? No, Thisra said quietly. We're not. The next day brought worse news. The Nexari Queen tried to withdraw her forces from human command, citing her species' right to self-determination. The response was swift and terrifying. Minho politely explained that desertion during wartime carried the death penalty under human military law. Since all council forces now operated under human military law, the Nexari Queen was technically committing treason. The Queen wasn't executed. Instead, she was assigned to special duty aboard a deep space reconnaissance vessel in the most dangerous part of swarm territory. Her replacement was a younger Nexari who understood the new reality better. The Sacred Council of Ethics tried to intervene. They issued a formal condemnation of human methods and demanded a return to civilized standards of governance. Hana's response was to classify the entire Council of Ethics as non-essential personnel and reassign them to waste management duties on military vessels. When they protested, she pointed out that someone had to clean the toilets, and they weren't contributing to the war effort any other way. The pattern was always the same. The humans didn't arrest people or execute them for opposition. They just assigned them to increasingly dangerous or unpleasant duties until they learned to cooperate. A month later, Thisra received a private message requesting a meeting. She expected another secret gathering of resistance leaders. Instead, she found Admiral Jiwan waiting alone in her office. Council leader, he said politely. I thought we should talk. About what? About the fact that you think we're the bad guys. Thisra stared at him. In all their interactions, the humans had never acknowledged alien concerns about their methods. Aren't you? Jiwan considered the question seriously. From your perspective, probably. We've taken over your government, militarized your society, and eliminated most of your freedoms. Then why are you doing it? Because it works. Because the alternative is extinction. Because someone has to make the hard decisions that keep everyone alive. But at what cost? At any cost, Jiwan said simply. Council leader, you gave us authority to save the galaxy. We're saving it. The fact that you don't like our methods doesn't change our responsibility. We never meant for you to take over everything. You never specified limits. You were desperate and scared, so you gave us unlimited power. We're using it responsibly. This is responsible? Jiwan gestured toward a display showy. 6 months after the humans took control, something unprecedented happened. The Void Swarm sent a message. Admiral Jiwan stood in his command center, staring at the communication display. The message was simple, transmitted in basic mathematical concepts that any intelligent species could understand. Please stop. We surrender. We will leave this galaxy and never return. The command center fell silent. In the entire recorded history of the galaxy, the Void Swarm had never communicated with other species. It had never shown any sign of intelligence, beyond basic predatory behavior. Most importantly, it had never retreated. Now it was begging for mercy. Run it through analysis again, Jiwan ordered. Hana looked up from her workstation. I've checked it 17 times. The message is genuine. The transmission came from the swarm's main concentration in the Andromeda approach vector. Could it be a trick? Possible, but unlikely. The swarm has been retreating for 2 months. They've abandoned 12 sectors they previously controlled. This message is consistent with their behavior pattern. Minho approached with a tactical report. Our intelligence suggests the swarm is genuinely terrified. They've started avoiding any system where humans have been present. They're not just retreating, they're fleeing. Do-hyun grinned from his engineering station. I guess exploding planets and asteroid minefields made an impression. The victory should have been cause for celebration. The galaxy was saved. The ancient threat that had consumed stars for millions of years was running away in terror. Humanity had achieved the impossible. Instead, an uncomfortable silence filled the command center. Sir, a young alien officer asked nervously, does this mean the war is over? Jiwan considered the question. Around him, hundreds of alien officers waited for his answer. Outside the station, millions of ships patrolled under human command. Across the galaxy, billions of beings worked in the industrial system the humans had built. The immediate crisis is over, Jiwan said finally, but we need to ensure the swarm doesn't return. We need to maintain defensive readiness, and we need to be prepared for other threats. It was a reasonable answer. It was also a non-answer, and everyone in the room knew it. That evening, Thisera requested a private meeting with the human command staff. They met in what used to be the council's formal reception hall. The beautiful chamber had been converted into a military briefing room, but traces of its former elegance remained. The war is over, Thisera said without preamble. The swarm has surrendered. When will you be returning control to the council? Jiwan exchanged glances with his staff. Council leader, the situation is more complex than that. How is it complex? You were given authority to stop the swarm. You've stopped the swarm. Your mission is complete. Our mission was to protect the galaxy, Minho corrected. The swarm was just one threat. What other threats? Hana pulled up a holographic display showing various galactic dangers. Rogue artificial intelligences, dimensional invaders, time, paradox events, reality warping entities, dark matter civilizations. Those are theoretical. So was the Void Swarm, until it destroyed 23 sectors, Do-hyun pointed out. Thisera felt her frustration rising. You can't maintain military rule forever based on theoretical threats. We can maintain necessary defensive measures, Jiwan said calmly. The galaxy needs protection. The council system proved inadequate during the swarm crisis. The council made one mistake. One mistake that nearly ended everything, Minho said. How many mistakes should we allow before extinction becomes inevitable? This is about power, isn't it? Thisera accused. You like being in charge. The humans looked genuinely confused by the accusation. Jiwan frowned thoughtfully. Council leader, do you think we enjoy this? Do you think we wanted to spend our lives managing galactic bureaucracy? Then why are you doing it? Because someone has to. Because the alternative is chaos. Because you can't go back to pretending the galaxy is safe, just because one threat is gone. We can manage our own affairs. Can you? Hana asked seriously. Can you guarantee that the Council won't make another critical error? Can you promise that political considerations won't interfere with necessary defensive measures? Thysera opened her mouth to answer, then closed it. The truth was that she couldn't make those guarantees. The Council system was designed for debate and compromise, not emergency response. There has to be a middle ground, she said finally. There is, Jiwan agreed. We maintain necessary military authority while allowing civilian government to handle local affairs. That's not a middle ground. That's military occupation with local administrators. Yes, Minho said simply. That's exactly what it is. The honest admission was somehow worse than any lie would have been. 2 weeks later, the truth about human control became impossible to ignore. During the war, the humans had systematically gained legal control over most of Council civilization. Every temporary measure, every emergency authorization, and every military necessity had been carefully documented and integrated into a new governmental structure. Thysera discovered this when she tried to rescind some of the more oppressive wartime regulations. Every attempt was blocked by legal documents she had never seen before. When did I sign this? She asked, staring at a transfer of industrial authority to human command. Minho pulled out a tablet and showed her the original signature. 3 months ago. You authorized temporary requisition of industrial facilities for military production. I authorized temporary requisition. This document transfers permanent ownership. The original authorization didn't specify a time limit, Hana explained. Under emergency military law, temporary measures continue until formally rescinded by competent authority. I'm competent authority. I'm trying to rescind them now. Unfortunately, Jiwan said politely, only the Supreme Strategic Species can rescind measures taken under Supreme Strategic Species authority. That's you. Yes, and we don't think it's safe to rescind these measures while galactic security remains uncertain. Thysera spent 3 days reviewing legal documents with the galaxy's best attorneys. The conclusion was inescapable. The humans had legally maneuvered themselves into permanent control. Every signature, every vote, every emergency authorization had been carefully crafted to transfer authority upward. The most frightening discovery was that it appeared to be accidental. The humans had simply used standard military procedures, treating the entire galaxy like a war zone that needed to be secured and managed. They had solved each immediate problem without considering the long-term implications. Did you plan this? Thysera asked during another private meeting. Plan what? Jiwan asked. The complete takeover of galactic government. Jiwan looked genuinely surprised. We didn't take over anything. We used the authority you gave us to solve the problems you couldn't solve. But now you control everything. We control what needs to be controlled for galactic security. Local governments still handle local issues. Under your oversight. Yes, under our oversight. Someone has to ensure that local decisions don't compromise galactic security. Thysera realized that the humans truly didn't see what they had done as a conquest. To them, it was just effective management of a dangerous situation. What if we vote to revoke your Supreme Strategic Species status? She asked desperately. You're welcome to try, Minho said. But such a vote would need to be approved by the Supreme Strategic Species as potentially affecting galactic security. You would approve a vote to remove your own power. If we thought it was safe, Jiwan said, but we don't. When would it be safe? When the galaxy no longer faces existential threats. When will that be? Jiwan shrugged. Probably never. The universe is a dangerous place. That night, Thysera sat alone in her office, staring out at the human patrol ships that circled the station. The galaxy was safe, prosperous, and well-managed. Crime was virtually non-existent. Production was at record levels. Scientific advancement was accelerating. Every species had food, shelter, medical care, and meaningful work. The humans had eliminated poverty, ended wars between council species, and created the most efficient civilization in galactic history. It was also a civilization where every major decision was made by 4 humans who had originally just wanted to help. A soft chime indicated an incoming message. The communication was from Earth, a formal request from the human government. To the Galactic Council, the message read, "We respectfully request the return of Captain Jiwan and his crew. Their original mission was peaceful exploration, and they have been away from home for 8 months. We understand they have been helpful during your recent crisis, but we would appreciate their return at your earliest convenience." Thysera stared at the message for a long time. The humans' own government was asking for them back. Earth, apparently, had no idea that 4 of their citizens now controlled the largest civilization in galactic history. She started to compose a reply, then stopped. How could she explain that the galaxy couldn't function without its accidental conquerors? How could she admit that an advanced civilization of 847 species was now dependent on 4 humans who just wanted to go home? Instead, she deleted the message and marked it as lost in transmission. Outside her window, the human patrol ships continued their eternal watch, protecting a galaxy that no longer belonged to its original inhabitants.